Autoline After Hours is brought to you by Bridgestone Tires, your journey, our passion, and by the all-new 2015 Jeep Renegade.
This is Autoline After Hours with John McElroy, episode 287 for May 15th of 2015, Slicing Open Cadillac's CT6. Watch Autoline After Hours live at Autoline.tv every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 12 p.m. Pacific or 19 hours GMT. You can subscribe to this podcast for free by searching for Autoline in iTunes, Stitcher, or YouTube. Here we are again, Gary.
Here we are, John.
We're making a habit out of this.
I know. I last saw you in the LA airport yesterday morning.
That's exactly right. And we'll get into some of that later on in the show, talking about why we were in LA, but it was good. But we should let everybody know, joining us in the studio, Dave Sullivan, automotive analyst with Auto Pacific.
Thanks for having me.
Great having you here. And via Skype, we have joining us Lauren Fix.
Hello.
Hey, Lauren. And you're down in Houston, Texas.
Yes, I am. In a car.
Sitting in a car, Skyping in with us. So we're glad that we've got you joining us as well. And tell the viewers a little bit quickly, thumbnail. Who are you? What do you do?
I'm known as the car coach. As my husband says, I'm a not-for-profit consumer advocate. I guess sometimes it's not-for-profit, but I'm a member of the North American Car and Truck of the Year jury. I'm very honored to be a member. I also do a lot of national television work talking about what's going on in the world, not just about car reviews, but about the auto industry.
And of course, you've been on the show before, but just to bring anybody up to speed who wasn't aware of you. But now we got to tell everybody our special guest for this show is Travis Hester, the Executive Chief Engineer for Cadillac. I hope I got that title right.
You got it spot on.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah, thank you. It's nice to be here.
It's great to have you, Travis. And you brought in a cutaway of the Ct6.
I did. This was the cutaway that we used to release the car to the automotive world a little while ago in New York. And it's a great model. It has a lot of our new technology and a lot of the underpinnings of the car shown.
And we'll get into that in a minute, but
Tell our viewers about this car. I mean, we're talking to you as though, we know all about it, but I'm sure there are some people, benighted souls they may be, that don't know about this car. So tell us what you're doing here.
So this is our brand new Cadillac Ct6. It's the biggest of our Cadillacs that we have in our lineup. It is the, we have our ATS and then we have our CTS and our XTS. This is the largest of our cars. This is the Ct6. It's very much a luxury sedan driver's car. It was, at the very outset of this program, we knew we wanted to build a larger car. We knew it wanted to be wider, longer, bigger wheels than anything we had in the sedan portfolio. But we really wanted, we had a very strong desire to keep within the current driving dynamics, the athleticism that currently exists between an ATS and a CTS. So that was the concept behind the car, and that's what we've done. And some of the items that are here on display is how we did it.
And this is brand new platform, right?
This is ground up. There is nothing on this car that is the same as another car. We started from an absolute clean sheet. Very occasionally within the automotive industry, you are lucky enough to get on a program that is far-reaching enough and new enough to do some really cool things, and this was very much what this program was about.
It's got to be awesome in your career.
Oh, it's great. I've been very lucky, and we had a great team who worked on this program with me, and we did some very special things on this car.
And we'll get into some of the specifics because you brought this cutaway in, but we wanted to just establish some of what the car is all about. And where's it going to be built?
We'll have two manufacturing facilities. We have one in Michigan here, and then we'll have one in China, in Shanghai, actually, a brand new facility designed fundamentally around producing this car. It's a showpiece Cadillac plant in China, excuse me, and then we have our very good facility here in the US where we'll produce that car.
Is that the Detroit Hamtramck plant?
It is Detroit Hamtramck, correct. So we'll make that car there and we'll export that car around the world from Detroit.
Mm-hmm. So when did you start working on this program?
We started in late 2010 on this program. This was the first of first vehicle that we had planned off this architecture. And so late 2010, we started developing exactly where it wanted to go and how it wanted to come together. But when you do a new architecture, it's not a derivative of something. It takes some time to do that. So we were in no rush. We had an entry that we didn't have. We knew we wanted to fill this spot. It wasn't like there was another car moving out of production. We took our time and did it right. And that's some of the philosophy we've had throughout the entire program.
Was that all done here in Michigan, or was it done in other parts of? It was done in Australia.
Well, we're a very global industry, and we're a very global company within that industry. So we have input from everywhere around the world. But it was designed and executed fully here in GM Warren.
Was it the intended audience, the American consumer, or you say you're building this also in China? But when you set out and you wanted to put down on paper, what the customer looked like, what was the...
Yeah, we it's a good question. We designed this car for our two biggest regions in the world. For Cadillac, our two biggest regions are clearly here in the US and in China. And then later we'll be venturing into Europe in a more meaningful manner. But it was clearly designed around our biggest customers here in the US, very important, and in China. So we did a lot of time. We spent a lot of time with our customers in both countries. We spent time in Los Angeles and New York and Beijing and LA and Guangzhou and other places. So we took a lot of input into the car to make sure it delivered on exactly what our customers want. And in some cases that was very predictable. In other cases, it was nice to hear directly from customers what they felt.
Is there any difference, though? Sorry, John. Is there any difference between the two cars? What Chinese customer is going to get and what we'll see here?
Not a lot. There are a couple of things, but in the mainstream, no, they're very similar. There's regulatory items that are stronger in China that drive you into a plug-in hybrid in a more meaningful way than here in the US. And then the government down there incentivise that. So that's a stronger push down there. So there are things like that that will be more applicable to the China market, maybe less than the US. But from a vehicle dynamics and drivability and luxury execution, no. Customers in that segment at that price point, they want everything, they want it perfect, and they want it executed with a very fine attention to detail. So that's very similar.
Hey, Lauren, you got a question there?
Yeah, I have a question about the face of the vehicle. I mean, you're looking at like LED lighting. I know that's a really important part of making a consumer want to purchase your car. And I noticed that some of the teardrops, almost like the face of the car, the eyes being the headlights and the grille being the nose and the lower grille being the mouth, I noticed that there's almost tears running down the side of it. Is that part of something that the Chinese market will be different than the U.S. market?
No, the execution of the front of the car will be exactly the same in both regions. We have all LED lighting on the front end of the car and the rear end for that matter, and the intent there was just to design a lamp that was characteristic of a Cadillac that looked a little different and a little special. Like Cadillac lamps have a vertical signature in its nature, but at the same time we wanted to make sure that the car doesn't look too upright. It has to have a bold presence about it. This car is a very spacious vehicle. It's a wide vehicle, and we wanted to make sure that the lamps didn't diminish that in any way. So you would notice on the lamp there is a horizontal element to that lamp, although it does have a part vertical nature. It's a beautifully coloured lamp too. I'm not sure whether you've had a good look, but there's a nice light curtain that comes across the top. It's quite artistic. The guys in the studio did a magnificent job, I think.
It's real interesting how at night it's real easy to pick out the Cadillacs these days. That very vertical light signature with the headlamps.
We had a launch in Shanghai not too long ago, actually, around the time of the Shanghai Auto Show. And the way that this release was done is they had the cars coming from quite a far distance, and they just turned the lights on far enough back that you couldn't really tell the cars, and then drove them towards you. As soon as that CT6 lighting signature went on, everybody knew what it was, and it was very distinctive. And it's you know, after the show, you get lots of comments on the car, things that people think are really great and things that people would like you to do differently. And we got so many positive comments about the lamp, and the fact that it's not the same as every other car is it's very nice to hear.
In fact, Cadillac is one of the few brands that I can think of that you can pick out at night simply by the shape of the headlamps.
Yes. It's a very bold design. It's a little aggressive, but without being over the top. It's the lamps are a big thing in every car. We pay a lot of attention to them, and we're making great strides.
Travis, I was wondering if you could put this car in some context by talking about the cars that you benchmark.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. So, like I said, when we set out the car, we knew in our portfolio for Cadillac what the right size was going to be. So we knew we had our ATS and our CTS and our XTS, and then this was going to be the next car going forward. So we positioned that car to be nicely growing within our portfolio. And you may have heard, you know, it's not the end of our ambitions. We intend to do other things beyond the CT6, but for now this will be the biggest car in our portfolio. And we designed it to be the right size for the customers that we spoke to, the vast number of customers that we spoke to. So it sort of positions itself not directly on like a 5 Series, an Audi A6 and a Mercedes E-Class, and not quite a BMW 7 Series or an S-Class or an Audi A8. It ends up being somewhat in between, but it's interesting because we think it's the perfect blend of a car. When you get to drive the car, and I'm very much looking forward to people driving the car, it has a dynamic athleticism that will surprise people. It doesn't drive like a large car. It drives like a smaller car. And with some of the technology we've had in there, like active rear steering and the MR suspension, it actually has turn circles that are smaller, you know, low-speed manoeuvrabilities. It's more agile than that smaller segment that we just talked about. But at the same time, it gives you that athleticism and that driving dynamic that customers really crave in the smaller cars. But the physical size of the interior occupant space is more like the larger cars. So it's a very nice blend. It wasn't something that we went out and said, we need to be like this particular car. We went out to design what we think was the right answer for this desire between large, spacious vehicles and this driving dynamic.
So it's almost oxymoronic that you have a big car with agile capabilities.
Yeah, and you know, there's some very interesting things that came out at the end of that. The car from a, you know, when you drive this, when you try and create this type of car, then you get into the engineering side of, well, what does it take to create a larger car with a more athletic and agile performance characteristic? And you get into that and you say, okay, well, it has to be very low mass. It has to have an incredibly high torsional rigidity in there. And NVH, you know, is a secondary thing that customers sometimes think about, but it's so primary in how you feel about a car when you're in there. So we knew our targets. We needed very, very high, best-in-class torsional rigidity. We needed best-in-class mass, and we needed an NVH characteristic in the car that was superior to everything. All of those 6 cars that I mentioned before. And so we knew the goals, and we set out to design this car, and we didn't approach the body that I'll talk about shortly to say we needed to create a body that has come out like this. We iterated on there to create this outcome, and it was like 50 million computational hours of CAE analysis, over 200,000 combinations of this mixed material body in white that we ended up with, and the end result was spectacular. We have a car that is, you know, 8 inches bigger than the CTS, and you know, you would know the CTS is world class. It beats everybody in mass, every single person that it's up against in mass. Well, our car, despite it being 8 inches bigger, is exactly the same mass as a CTS.
That's unreal.
And it's, you know, it's 6 inches bigger than a 5 Series, but lighter than a 5 Series. It's lighter than an Audi A6. It's lighter than Mercedes E-Class, despite being like 7.5 inches bigger than the E-Class and 9 inches bigger than the Audi.
Well, Travis, you brought this beautiful cutaway. Come on up with me and let's show the audience some of the things we're talking about. You got a cup of water there,
thank
too,
you.
in case you need that.
Okay, great.
And do you have the remote for operating some of the things on this car?
I don't need it just for the second, but
okay.
I know where it is. I can grab it.
I'm dying. When I saw this casting that's part of the front fender at the New York show, my jaw dropped. I'd never seen anything like this on a car before. So why don't we start with that, because I'm blown away by this.
Yeah, this is one of my favourite parts. So this part we call the front body hinge pillar. This is a single casting that runs from the top here of the A-pillar down to the rocker and all the way through to the shock tower. This part is one single casting from a very large high-pressure die casting tool. It's aluminum. It has an outer and an inner all in one part. And this is designed specifically to do several roles. It's designed to keep stiffness in the front structure here. It's designed to keep very good NVH characteristics and to manage crash loads exactly how we want them to be. And just as a comparison, in a normal car that may be aluminum or steel or any other construction that you want, we would typically have 35 components that would make up this one component. So we consolidated parts here down from 35 to 1.
Wow.
And that does things. You can see the ribbing, the deep ribbing that we have here in this casting. That's there for load management of our, we have large wheels and tyres on this car because it just looks great. And it helps with load management. It helps with front crash. But because you don't have, when you have 35 parts coming together, there is inherent movement in those parts that as an engineer you always try and fight against. You put structural adhesive, or you put spot welds, or you put whatever you need to do to remove any sort of rigidity movement and to seal up NVH gaps and other things. I don't have that problem in this car. There's 35 issues I don't have to deal with because it's all there. And the beautiful thing when you do a casting is you can tailor that casting to do whatever you want. In fact, there's a great example I'd like to show you on the back corner, if that's okay.
Even though I have a million questions about that too, it just looks cool.
It does, and I'll come back to that one after this. But this part demonstrates that point more than any other. This particular part is called the rear longitudinal rail, and you can see this is one of our largest castings in the car. It runs from here on the rocker all the way up to the aluminum extrusion that comes in there at the rear longitudinal. But you'll notice the ribbing in this part is very interesting.
Every piece of the ribbing is different.
Yes, and this normally this part would be made up of a multi-layered set of pressings, but you can see here, and those pressings are made to provide structure where you need it. But because a pressing needs to run the full length, you end up carrying mass where you don't want it. These parts, you can look here, we have very tight ribbing through these areas, which are above the rear crossmember here, above the rear cradle. Then here on the right, you'll notice that very tight ribbing again against the rear portion of the cradle. But then here, where you don't need that stiffness, the ribbing gets much wider because we're saving mass in this area and putting structure where we exactly need it. And you'll notice that all of these parts, they're all curved out. Each one of these are individually manipulated by the engineers to give structure exactly where we need it and remove mass exactly where we don't. So these parts saved in geometry, in mass, in NVH, and again, it helped add to this incredible stiffness that we had in the car, which is really one of the reasons that it rides and handles just so well for a big car. So that part, it's a great part. It's one of my other favourite parts in this car.
It looks weird in a way, but on the other hand, it's beautiful what you guys have achieved with that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. When you look at all the part consolidation around the car and you look at all the castings, we have 13 high-pressure die castings throughout the car. It's about a 20% consolidation on parts. And all of those parts breed more efficiency because then you don't have to seal those parts. So you don't have to add other parts to seal any joints. So the combination of those 13 castings around the car, the part consolidation gave us this superior NVH characteristics. The less parts with this intricate ribbing helped a lot for stiffness. And then what we did is very interesting. That's where you get into this mixed material approach. We didn't turn in, manufacturing have enabled us to do something that other people can't do. We can effectively put any panel together that we want. You can have an aluminum panel followed by a steel panel followed by an aluminum panel. We have 5 joining techniques, a couple of them patented only by GM, that allow us to join these materials without having to worry about corrosion or other
They're able
areas.
to keep the metals separate.
Yeah.
And what I notice is a huge lack of rivets.
Yeah, that's right. So we have this patented technology where we spot weld aluminum together. You can see some of this in this front corner here. Some of these spot welds are our patented aluminum spot welding technology. That allows, we have more than 3,000 of these in the cars, 3,073. And these allow us to join efficiently and accurately all of these panels throughout the car without having to worry about rivets, which are inherently cumbersome to use. They weigh more. They take more geometry. They're just not as good. So we've been able to do something here with this manufacturing that's special. But what really adds the magic to the car is it allowed us to have the front end of the car aluminum, the rear end of the car aluminum, but here in the occupant cell, through iterative analysis, what we learned, sometimes if you have a car that's all aluminum, you find that there's an NVH characteristic which is not pleasant. You get inherent resonance through the road that people struggle to get rid of. So we did testing where we took thin gauge steel and we looked at a portion of NVH acoustics, and then we compared that to doing thicker aluminum and tried to work out how much acoustics we would need to put in there to be the same as the steel. And it was ridiculously large. It didn't come out efficient. It took more geometry, more mass into the car. So
steel was lighter in this case?
When you look at the total vehicle, if you just compare body and white, it's not. But if you look at total vehicle mass, it's much less efficient to do it that way. So the numbers that I quoted you before are total vehicle mass. That's why our integration here is what was very special. So we ended up in our occupant cell with this very mixed approach. All of the large component panels here are steel, thin gauge steel with acoustics, but all of the structural elements are aluminum. All of these cross braces, this very large tunnel casting here that integrates so well into the area, all of this is aluminum. So this approach has allowed this great outcome of NVH characteristics.
We're going to take a break and come back and talk about more of it.
Yeah, okay.
Hey! Did you have a good nap?
The Firestone Destination LE2. Tough enough to handle anything the road throws at you.
Oops.
And you throw at it. Durable, dependable Firestone tires. Whatever you drive a Firestone.
We haven't. We could. We know how to do it. I've done it before. Would be nice for my home market.
Yeah. For those of you who just missed during the break, David asked Travis if there's a right-hand steer version of this car coming.
Yeah, right-hand drive is something that eventually we will do in Cadillac. We haven't done it in this particular vehicle at the moment. We can do it. We know how to do it. But it's, there's a business reality here that we have to pick the right time to expand into right-hand drive. And at the moment, our priorities are very clear. We need to build up the portfolio for our key markets, and then after that we need to make sure we have the right powertrain entries for everything around the world and expand into Europe, and then after that I guess we'll consider going into right-hand drive when the market is right, when it's time for us.
Travis, in terms of some of the technologies you were talking about for the casting and for the welding and so on, was this a case where this development was done and it was on the shelf and you guys came and took it off, or was it a situation where you had a giant team of people together? You had designers, you had engineers, you had manufacturing engineers, and you all got together and said, we're going to develop this new car, this new Cadillac, and we want to do it in a different way than has been done in the past? Yeah,
it was a little bit of both, but it was interesting how it came together because we didn't set out to do so many new things on one car. It was a matter of to hit the performance targets that we needed. These were the things that had to occur. So we had done some aluminum die casting in the Corvette vehicle as a company, and we had done some of this aluminum spot welding on a much smaller scale through the ATS and CTS programs. We'd not put them together. and we hadn't put this scale of technology together in one car before. So there was a little bit of we've done it, we've dabbled in it in some of the other programs. But we had enough confidence in the manufacturing team who really stretched throughout this program to deliver on what the engineers wanted to do. We took a big chance to put this together, and we iterated on the fly for quite a while. We had lots of ongoing testing, preparing for each build phase. We had 3 hardware build phases, and we spent a lot of time in the research labs just proving to ourselves how to do what we needed to do. And it actually worked out great. Yeah.
Hey, we've got a bunch of questions coming in from the audience. I don't know if we can get to them all. Racicle Blank from Twitter wants to know, what are the chances of a big coupe from Caddy?
Yeah, coupes.
Can't talk about future products,
Coupes
right?
are great. I like coupes, I like convertibles, I like sports cars. We have grand plans to do as many things as we can, but we don't have any specific announcements that we'll make at the moment.
Leonard Fedoric wants to know, can the CT6 be armored?
Could it be armoured? It could be. We don't have plans for armoured at the moment. There's not something that I've got working at the current time.
Mac Ford Fan 98 wants to know what engine options you're going to have in the U.S. and how did you decide to use which engine in the CT6?
Yeah, we have a good range of engines. We have a 4-cylinder engine that we have announced. It's the very power dense 4-cylinder 265 horsepower 4-cylinder turbo that will be in here. That will be our base engine. It's the surprise engine of the package. With a car this big and this light, it's my favourite engine to drive when it comes to putting somebody new in the car. It's just smiles because people can't believe it drives the way it does for a small engine. We also have the 3.6 litre naturally aspirated, and then we have the 3-litre twin turbo engine, which is an all-new engine, 3-litre twin turbo V6. It's an all-new engine for Cadillac, and it's dedicated to Cadillac. It'll be first used in this car. It's like 133 horsepower per litre, beautiful engine, and it has some technology even within that engine that's globally first to industry. The first 3-litre twin turbo to have cylinder deactivation and start-stop in the one engine, so we get really great fuel economy, but to deliver like 400 horsepower and 400 newton meters of torque. It's spectacular.
Hey, Lauren's got a question too.
Yeah, I have a question. You know, in terms of benchmarking, I know that Cadillac's done a great job coming up against the Germans, but part of that would be, if you're looking at, for example, Audi, they have an S-Line, which is a performance look, and then they also have the S6. Is that something that Cadillac's going to try and compete in that area as well?
Well, we have, Cadillac is, sort of well known for our V Series. We have that on our ATS and our CTS, and they, if you've driven them, are spectacular cars to drive. And then we have V Sport variants as well, and we are looking at different avenues to do with this car because, the base car is so capable that a V variant, whether it's a V Sport or a V Series, is yet to be announced. But yeah, we're looking at those. The car's clearly capable of doing that, and from what I see, it's good.
Mitch
but does
Weaver,
that mean you're also going diesel as well? Because that's something that they're offering the full lineup on the Germans with diesel.
Yeah, we're definitely looking, as we go forward in the portfolio, we're looking at different powertrain combinations. We've already announced that we have a plug-in hybrid for China, which is a very important portfolio entry. We're looking at V8s and diesels and other things. This is something we'll do continually.
Could that hybrid come here?
Yeah, it could. It's absolutely able to do that. In fact, we announced that in Shanghai, that we will bring some of those plug-in hybrid vehicles over here to the US, and some of the figures on that car are quite astounding. We released some of the figures. We advise people that we have a fuel economy for down there of less than 2 litres per 100k, which is spectacular for in their fuel economy range. We also have an 18.4 kilowatt battery. We have an electric-only driving range of greater than 60 kilometres, which is, those two figures alone are world-class. If you look at the other vehicles that are putting in plug-in hybrids down there, those are world-class numbers that are going to surprise people when they drive that car too.
Hey, Bob D wants to know if the CT6 replaces the XTS, which is currently the biggest car.
Yeah, no, it will not replace the XTS. They'll be sold in the same time period. The XTS is continuing. This is a bigger car than the XTS. It's actually 11 inches bigger in wheelbase, and it will continue on together for a while. This will now be our biggest Cadillac.
Mitch Weaver wants to know, how does that computer rear view mirror that gives you a 360-degree view or maybe 180-degree view work?
This is one of the great technologies in the car. There's lots of them in there, but this is a great one. There is a high-definition camera in the back of the car on the deck lid, and that's linked up to a mirror in the vehicle that is a reflective mirror in its normal state. So you can use it as a normal mirror whenever you want. But if you flick the lever underneath that, that now turns into a 80-degree field of view projection of everything behind you. So when you normally sit in a car, when you look at the C-pillars and the parcel shelf and the roof, you get about 21 degrees field of view. That's what a normal person will get in a normal car. But when you flick on the mirror, you now go out to 80 degrees field of view. You can see the lane behind you and the two lanes before that, and it's like magic. Everybody or everything that's sitting behind your B-pillar disappears. It's like driving a car with nothing behind you.
So no headrest, no backseat passengers blocking your view.
It's a really great technology, and for manoeuvring cars around, for people who want to have greater visibility and control over their car, it's a really fantastic
No issues
technology.
from the government with something like that?
Oh, we've worked closely with the government on this. They've reviewed the car, they've driven the car. The government are supportive of trying to make cars better. That's what their regulations try and do, and they've been involved with it. They know what we're doing. So yeah, we don't expecting to have any issues with our partners.
So would this be mainly for parking or for maneuvering on the highway?
It's interesting when I talk to people who've driven the car what their favourite element of it is. For parking, it's quite helpful. You can see around, so it's helpful for just low-speed manoeuvrability. But freeway is good too, to drive down the freeway and have complete visibility of what's behind you. And what's great about it, 80 degrees field of view means you almost have no blind spot. A car will come up and you can see them in your rear vision mirror, and by the time they get out of your rear vision mirror, you can be picking up their front fender in your peripheral vision out the side. That, for me personally, that's the part that is so magical about this, because you can drive with more confidence. You don't have to worry about a blind spot. So we still have blind spot detection and other things in there, but this is just another layer of confidence that people can have.
How is it at night?
Night is something that it works well, but as technology evolves, night is something that can be better and better, particularly night in the rain. Camera sensors throughout the world, there is no sensor technology that can pick up the difference between real light or light bouncing off a wet road. So as software gets better and development gets better of those sensors, which we're already working on, that's going to get better again.
I've got one more question that I want to get to here. We've got a lot of them. Michael Ma from San Francisco wants to know, could you build a CUV off the Ct6 platform?
You could take the philosophy that we've done here and build an SUV for sure. This high stiffness, reduced part consolidation approach with mixed material, it would work there, no problem. And there are elements of this car that we will use in other areas for sure.
Yeah, because when you sink all the money into developing a new platform, you want to use the industry jargon, bandwidth for other models.
Yeah, and look, when you find something that's fundamentally better, it will either continue on or stop based on the merits of that technology. And I know some of this is stiffness and low mass is something that we all want throughout the industry. It helps our customers, and that's a good execuation.
You didn't mention, so it's rear drive and all-wheel drive.
Correct.
So could you talk a little bit about the all-wheel drive system?
Yeah, so there is when you solve when you solve the problem of body stiffness and mass and drivability, you still end up with a large car. This is a big car. So we have an active rear steering on this car that is great. It's the way it works is at low speed, the front and rear wheels will turn out of phase to each other by 3.5 degrees, and that will allow you in low speeds to turn this car like a small car. The turn circle will come down to 37 feet, 11.4 metres. So that's at low speed, and the car becomes extremely manoeuvrable. It's a pleasure for me to drive in a car and ask somebody to drive up to a wall and turn the latest they think that they can turn, and regularly they will turn like 8-9 feet clear of the wall. You know, it's a great for that. At the same time, at high speed, we'll do in-phase steering, and that's really good because when you drive at high speed and you're doing a lane change or you're doing something that is where you want comfort in the back, the rear steer will go in phase and it doesn't fishtail the car anymore. The rear occupants will move nicely into position, and head toss is one metric that we measure to help us understand driver passenger comfort. The head toss numbers are very low for this, quite in the back. So.
Yeah, all those weird noises you're hearing was the demo of the different steering going on.
Yeah. So, yeah, that would be a nice shot to show people that's how much movement you get in that rear wheel there. Yeah. But it's the active rear steer has been something we've managed to get more calibrations through, and we've got more out of it than...
A little more mature than when the pickup trucks had it.
Oh, sure. Technology has come a long way. So, it'll be one of the things, when we get to drive cars with everybody, we're not too far away from that, there'll be certain things that we really want to make sure people understand and see, because that's something that the impact of driving it is greater than the discussion feels like.
Travis, we could go on all week long. We've barely scratched the surface, it seems. As much as information as you've given us, there's so much more on this car to talk about, but really want to thank you for coming on after hours, and it's great to have this cutaway here. It's you can't wait for us to get in the car and drive it. I can't wait to take you up on it.
So when do we get to drive it?
It'll be late this year. Yeah, right. So late this year, and we're all looking forward to that.
And it'll go on sale when?
It'll be, we're going to go on sale late this year as well, actually. So, it'll be, late this year. There's some announcements. I'm not exactly sure of the dates.
Real good. Yeah. Well, once again, I want to thank you so much for coming on After Hours and bringing at least part of a CT6 along with you.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, we'll probably want to have you guys back on once we get a chance to drive it and talk about it even more in depth.
And possibly see the rest of the skin.
Yeah. I'll bring the rest of the car next time.
The other pieces.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a quick break right now as we move Travis out of here. But one thing I want to talk about
afterwards.
Okay. Quick break right here, and then we'll come back and have another promo to talk about. You already know that you can listen to Autoline's Industry Insight in places like YouTube and Stitcher, but did you know that you can also listen to it live in your car? It's simple. Just pair your smartphone with your vehicle's Bluetooth connection or plug into the aux jack. Then navigate to Autoline.tv using your phone's browser. Find the show you want to hear and click play, just like you would on your computer. This is Autoline After Hours with John McElroy. It's that easy. Never be disconnected from Autoline's top-notch insider information with Autoline on the go. Hey, before we get into the news part of the section of the show, I want to talk about next week's show. We've got a guy named Richard Rawlings that's going to be Skyping in with us. He's just written a book about his television program, Fast and Loud, and we're going to be giving away 3 copies of this book. So if you want to win one of the copies of this, scroll down to the bottom of this post or visit our website at Autoline.tv, and you're going to find a link of how to enter the contest. We've got a bunch of ways for you to enter, including on Twitter, on YouTube, on Facebook, or just sharing this contest with your friends. So pick a way that works for you, and you will be in the drawing to get this book. and we're going to be announcing the winner in a couple of weeks. So get your entries in at Autoline.tv. And I got to tell you, I've read most of the book. It's actually pretty interesting. I thought this guy was just some crazy Yahoo, and he is. But this guy's quite an entrepreneur. In fact, I think that the Harvard Business School ought to do a case study of this guy. He is that interesting from a business standpoint. So anyway, he'll be on the show next week. But what we got to talk about is what we've been doing. In fact, now we got to get Lauren more back into this conversation. Lauren, so we were with you, me, and Gary spent the week out in California in Santa Monica driving the new Volvo XC90, and I'm dying to get, what's your overall impression of that thing?
Well, I was glad to see a big change in design. That was the number one thing, that it no longer was what the consumer thinks is a cracker box, you know, a bunch of box on top of a box. The design, both inside and out, is much improved, really stylized, and they really want to change their market perspective, what the consumer thinks of their car, and that's going to be a challenge. But overall, I think they did a great job both on the T6 and on the T8. Just a lot of the soft touch materials, the real wood. I mean, I think they did a great job. I'm very impressed with the overall product.
We should probably explain that, first of all, the XC90, for those who are not familiar with it, is a 3-row SUV crossover that Volvo's put out. And when Lauren mentioned the T6, then basically we're talking about a car with a 4-cylinder engine. The T8 is a plug-in hybrid that they've
with
developed.
The same 4-cylinder engine.
Same 4-cylinder engine, and but much improved performance with the just straight supercharged and turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. It's 320 horsepower. The combined setup with a hybrid goes up to 400 horsepower. So it's it's like 427 foot-pounds of torque, something like that. Boy, that's good. It's 472. So basically, you just swap those two numbers back there.
I'm dyslexic.
That was very close. Damn, that was good. And they're talking about greater than 59 miles per gallon with that car. And I mean, this is a big ass car. I mean, it's a substantial bit of engineering there.
And that hybrid, the acceleration is impressive.
Yeah, it has those various modes that you can set, right? And
you get to soccer practice that much faster.
Way fast.
That's right. But you know, the one thing about the plug-in is, okay, we talked about the T6 and the T8, and then there's 3 trim levels. Depending on the trim level, the upcharge for the plug-in is $17,000 or $19,000. And Lauren, what do you think? You think they're crazy in their pricing of that, or what?
Well, I think whenever you purchase a hybrid, you need to calculate how you're going to recoup your investment, essentially. And if you look at it as an investment, it's not a good investment. But if you want to be green, and then that's your agenda, then it's certainly a vehicle to consider. As people know who know me, I prefer diesel because you can make your money back. But with hybrids, it's a lot of money. Will the take rate be high? Probably not, but they have to build the vehicle with a hybrid in order to meet that CAFE standard, and that's why everyone's building electric cars and hybrid cars, whether they sell or not.
Well, but to be fair to them, I mean, it's not just saving fuel, Lauren, because if you're getting a 400 horsepower vehicle, I mean, so somebody who wants more performance, that's the way to go.
The T8 is really a substitute for, think of it as a V8, an 8-cylinder substitute. Right. The T6 is a substitute for what would
but you're the analyst, right. Dave. Could you charge $17,000, $19,000 for a V8?
No, but you have to remember, this is a luxury car, so a lot of them are going to be leased. Right. So we'll have to see how the leases come out, but that's going to be, we can look at it and say, yeah, $17,000, that's a lot of money, but it's how it's going to lease.
Well, plus you get the Orifice crystal shifter knob. So
explain that, Gary, just so people.
Well, so I mean, part of what Volvo is doing is greatly emphasizing their Swedishness, and so there is,
as they should.
And I think some of that maybe has gone by the wayside, and I think what they want to do is they want to bring it back. Okay, they really want to emphasize, just the whole Swedish, Scandinavian sort of thing.
That they're not Chinese.
That they're not Chinese, or that they're not like they used to be American, right? So Orifice crystal, which makes fabulous vases and things like that. They had done a concept car, and they used a Orifice crystal shift knob, and they decided, you know what? we're going to carry that into production and have that in the hybrid vehicle. And I mean,
So say that word again. How do you spell that?
O-F-F.
Google it.
Yeah, Google it. I'm not going to spell it.
Okay, never mind.
But you know,
the only reason I say that is that I've never heard of this type of crystal before. You know, because what do I know? I thought they had said Waterford, but it's
Orfors.
Okay.
My wife's got a couple of.
Do you know? Hey, you're laughing in the background there, Lauren. Do you know how you spell it?
No, do you want me to look it up?
No. Never mind.
Don't worry, Lauren. I'm doing it now.
I have a piece of Orfors crystal that somebody gave me, so it's very nice. It's very nice, high-end crystal.
Yeah, the interior on that car, though, is not like any other Volvo we've ever seen. And I think, actually, if you compare it to the new Q7, it's definitely a step above even the new Q7.
That's saying a lot.
But it's really impressive. I mean,
Volvo's always
they had plenty of time to do their homework for this one. So,
all right, we got the spelling O-R-R-E-F-O-R-S.
Okay.
And.
Just to make sure, so anybody in the audience is, what's the big deal about this crystal and wants to know? You're saying it's real high-end stuff.
It's sensational. But and before we get away from the whole hybrid discussion, remember Travis was just mentioning about how they have the plug-in hybrid version, which is launching in where? China.
Right.
Because they need it where? In China. What is Volvo going to do with this car? Also sell it in
China.
So
they have 2 plants in China.
Who owns Volvo?
The Chinese. Well, we shouldn't say the Chinese. It's a
holding company.
Mm-hmm. A Chinese company.
But very interesting car. And so you mentioned the Q7, and Ben, I think we have a graphic of something that has to do with the Q7. So looking at the deliveries of 3-row crossovers last year. So Acura MDX tops the list at 65,603 units. Another competitor that that Volvo has identified is the BMW X5, 47,031. Then we have the Mercedes M family, and that's 46,726.
No third row in that one.
And the Infiniti QX60, 31,192, and the aforementioned Q7 at 18,517. Now, this is the number which I find to be rather astonishing, is if we look at the total Volvo deliveries of everything last year in the U.S., and it's 56,366 units, which basically means that, the MDX outsold Volvo.
Yeah.
So anything they can get is going to be
to the good.
They're going to build a plant in South Carolina for 100,000 more vehicles.
Mm-hmm. Are they going to sell them?
Somewhere. Not here.
Why?
I mean, that's a lot of vehicles. We don't know what they're building there.
No, I think to Dave's point here, look, Volvo, I don't know what their peak sales were in the U.S. market, but it was way above 56,000.
Yeah, back when Ford owned them, there was a lot of people who could get a Ford discount on them, and employees were getting them, and they were selling quite a few. I don't know what it was, maybe 2004 or so. They were 5. They were kind of near their peak.
But anyway, their sales collapsed, and now they're trying to come back. At the same time, Cadillac's trying to come back. At the same time, Lincoln's trying to come back, and Infiniti, and Acura, and Buick. All in the same space. What were you saying, Lauren?
The Land Rover Discovery Sport is out there too, and I think that's a main competitor that they didn't consider. I even consider the Porsche Cayenne, the 6-cylinder, or the hybrid as a competitor, because you're in that price point, and you're talking about people that are looking at European cars. Volvo's going to go head-to-head in that marketplace. It's a huge marketplace.
Oh, and that's a good point, because if you look at the base XC90, it's about $49,000, almost $49,000. But if you go to the top range T8, it's like $73,000. That's a wide. So to your point, Lauren, you're absolutely right. You're starting to step into Porsche territory.
Right, and I mean, once you drive a Cayenne and you're going to compare it to a Volvo, compare it to a Land Rover, you're looking at different aspects. Are you looking at comfort? Are you looking at performance? And so a lot of times when people are looking at buying the German brands, and I include the Touareg in there as well, it's a different handling car, where I think you're looking, the Acura is probably more head-to-head in the Infiniti with the Volvo. It doesn't have that same German type of feel.
No, one thing, John, that you got a big charge out of was the autonomous capabilities. And I know that you really emphasize that whole aspect.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And I know we're coming up to a break in a minute here, but just to give you the thumbnail, it's, what Volvo is talking about. What do they call it? It's not autopilot. It's
autopilot, isn't it?
Is it autopilot, or is that the Tesla one? And, they're all starting to blend together.
With their new screens and everything, that 12-inch screen between the steering wheel and then the big iPad type in the center stack, I think they did a fabulous job with that. Very intuitive.
Yeah, no, they did do a good job.
Pilot assist.
Pilot assist.
Pilot assist.
And so Gary and I were driving around with another one of our colleagues, and we couldn't get it to work, and we couldn't get it to work. We couldn't get it to work to save our lives.
So basically, just to explain, this is sort of adaptive cruise control with steering thrown in.
Right.
So it'll follow the vehicle in front of you while your feet are off the pedals and hands off the wheel.
Right. In fact, this is what, and I'll bet it's a Continental system, because Continental has been talking about traffic jam assist, and that's what this is really for, is that you can turn over the driving, to the car when you're in a traffic jam, stop and go traffic and all. And like I said, we're going to take a break, and when we come back from that, I'll tell you how I didn't get it to work.
Long live the pioneers, rebels and mutineers. Go forth and have no fear. Come close and lend an ear. And I say, hey, hey, live it like we're renegades, renegades.
Hey, we really want to thank Jeep Renegade as a sponsor to the program. Really cool to have them on board. And of course, we always love having our friends at Firestone and Bridgestone on board too. But anyway, getting back to it, I complained to one of the Volvo PR people that I couldn't get this autopilot thing to start working. So we jumped in another car and went out. And what it turns out is that you have to have distinct lane markings on both sides of the vehicle. Having a dotted line on one side and a curb on another is not good enough. It's got to have marked lines. And when the system's on and it recognizes those lanes, a little icon comes on the center cluster to tell you, hey, I'm aware of this thing. So you set the cruise, and sure enough, dang if this thing didn't work brilliantly well. It's real easy to find stop-and-go traffic on a freeway in the L.A. area, which is where we were. And so we drove for about 10 minutes of just letting this car speed up, slow down, do all the steering. It was really good. The only one thing it was not good at, and it only happened to us once, somebody tried to cut in real abruptly in front of us. And it can recognize a car directly in front of you. But if somebody's coming in at an angle, you better be ready to grab the wheel or get on the brakes. But other than that, man, it worked great. It only works up to 33 miles an hour. But that's only because the lawyers told them, don't go over that for now.
Right, and to be fair to them, that they were never saying that this is all about driving without your hands on the steering wheel or not paying attention. They're just saying that this is something that will facilitate your rush hour drive in places like L.A.
Yeah.
Did you have to touch the steering wheel every so often?
No, because...
No, so like Mercedes-Benz has something similar, but you have to it has to feel something every hour.
Yeah, it says you a warning, put your hands back on the wheel, damn it,
Yeah, but it's even weird. If you just touch the wheel lightly in the Mercedes system, that's not good enough because, I love autonomy. I think it's a cool thing. And to be able to have the car steer for you is really good too. But the Mercedes is always nagging you. Put your hands on the wheel. They do it, a little bit unobtrusively with an icon that comes on that shows you should have your hands on the wheel. But if you don't do it, it kicks the system off after a while. And I find the Mercedes approach annoying. It's like, what's the point of having a car that can steer itself if you got to have your hands on the wheel? Come on.
There's a hack on YouTube where you can hang a water bottle. They hung a water bottle off the steering wheel, so it senses there's some weight on there, and you can. Yeah, the guy just continues driving.
A whole lot of S-Class owners are
hanging
a water bottle, hacking their S-Class.
So, Lauren, what do you think about the whole autonomous driving thing on the XC90 and beyond?
Well, I'm not a big fan of it personally because I enjoy driving, but unfortunately there will be people that will hack any system if they can because that's part of the fun. But I think for the most people it will help them be safer on the road. There's a lot of people that aren't paying attention. I'm driving here in Houston roads and they're hanging out in the high-speed lane. They're trying to text and drive and eat and drive and kids in the car, and hopefully it'll make it safer not just for other drivers but for motorcyclists on the road.
I love driving too, but not in rush hour traffic, not in bumper-to-bumper stop and go. And I'm telling you, this system, when you get those lane markings painted there, it worked really well. I mean, I would go for it in a flash. If, I was stuck in stop-and-go traffic every day, this thing would be great.
What did something like that cost on the XC90?
That's a good question. We never got a breakout of all the options. They just told us trim levels, and they skipped over the option. I mean, they told us the option list, but they didn't say what the price was. I don't even want to say. I want to guess $1,200, but I can't remember what the actual price was.
These guys are definitely overachieving with this car. I mean, they really...
Like I said,
it's a nice car.
They had plenty of time to figure it out.
Yeah. Well,
the other one's pretty old.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, yeah, it's a second-generation car, and the first one came out in...
Well, they were saying that this is going to be old school in just about a year or two. When they're
great point. They said in 4 years' time, the XC90 will be the oldest vehicle in their lineup.
Yeah, first generation 2002.
They have a whole bunch of new cars coming on a new platform with Geely. They're going to have some Geely cars off the same platform, so they're pretty busy. By 2018, you'll pretty much see a whole new lineup.
Well, and they're doing it smart. I think they said they went from 5 gasoline engines and 2 diesels down to 1 gasoline and 1 diesel, and it's this 2-liter 4-cylinder. As you mentioned, Gary, supercharged and turbocharged. And man, I'm telling you, I like superchargers because the instant response in this thing is terrific. They've got an Eaton supercharger and a Borg-Warner turbo on it.
What's interesting is when the powertrain engineer said that the savings that they achieved by rationalizing their powertrain strategy, they took the money and put it on the interior of the car. And I mean, you never hear powertrain guys say, hey, we realize that it's more than what's under the hood. We realize it's the total package.
Right.
Wow, what an astonishing statement.
And thank God they're taking the long-term view, because most companies would take all those savings and drop it to the bottom line and not put it back in the product.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this says a lot, I think, for the hopefully what we'll see in the future. The last Volvo I drove was an S60, and it just really didn't do much for me. It looked like it had been, the pennies had been pinched out of it. So hopefully that's indicative of what we'll see coming down the road here for the brand as a whole.
Well, going back to the autonomy thing, Gary, you wanted to bring this up. Volvo's really pushing a lot of projects in autonomy now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, they're going to be running a program in Gothenburg where they're going to have 100 XC90s rolling around on public highways. We talked last week about the Freightliner doing the public highways in Nevada, and this is going to be 100 XC90s that are going to be in the hands of real people. So if you move to Gothenburg, maybe they'll give you one. And so they're doing a whole lot of stuff with that, and I think they're highly confident. And then earlier this week, the big news about the Google car getting in accidents, and
but not its fault.
Not its fault. It's very interesting that Chris Urmson, who we talked about on the show, the guy who's in charge of the Google car thing, he wrote a long blog post on this website, and he points out that about 33,000 people die on American roads every year. And he made the point that they have driven 1.7 million miles in testing the Google cars. This is a quote from him, over the 6 years since we started the project, we've been involved in 11 minor accidents, Pren, light damage, no injuries during those 1.7 million miles of autonomous and manual driving with our safety drivers behind the wheel. And this is in boldface, not once was a self-driving car the cause of the accident.
But you think about what Volvo they've always been known for.
Safety.
Safety. But now, I mean,
they invented the seatbelt.
Yeah, safety is standard.
The 3-point seatbelt.
I mean, we're seeing
Right, in 1959.
We saw the Murano this week. IIHS came out and gave it a top safety pick plus. I mean, safety is now standard. It's a standard feature. You can't sell a car without it now. So Volvo doesn't really have that as a competitive edge anymore. So now that they look at autonomous driving as the next safety feature, and that's how they're going to define their brand in the future, and that's how they will bring safety back as kind of their pillar of their brand.
Yeah, it's very interesting that even though, to your point, everybody is got very similar levels of safety right now, nonetheless, it's important for Volvo to be the first with the safety stuff. So they were the first, I believe, with forward collision warning, with full stop braking and pedestrian detection. And now everyone's going to have it, and not even on expensive cars. But as long as Volvo can be the first out with this stuff, I think it can maintain that safety image. And so
I would agree, yeah.
Just piggybacking what you said, they've got to be one of the first, if not the first, with some sort of autonomy.
Yeah, and you have to be conservative with it too. You don't want, of course, the headlines this week about Google were, autonomous cars, cause crashes or involved in crashes. So it gave them if you didn't read it, you actually.
Well, it's fine. I mean, okay, here's the exodus. We've been hit from behind 7 times, mainly at traffic lights, but also on the freeway. We've also been sideswiped a couple times and hit by a car rolling through a stop sign. Yeah. None of them, it's their fault.
Exactly. Right. But the headlines didn't read like that.
Right.
And the Delphi car got T-boned by somebody while it was, waiting to make a left-hand turn. And it had to jump a median to hit the car. So, Lauren, where do you think autonomy's going?
I think they're going to bring it in a little bit at a time to start introducing the public a little bit more. And as consumers feel comfortable, like we all feel comfortable with lane change departure. We see it on everything from, a Ford to a GM to a Kia. We're comfortable with backup cameras. We're getting more comfortable with active cruise control. So as they keep introducing little pieces of the puzzle, I think consumers will be much more comfortable with that. Taking your hands off the wheel, I think, is going to be a little bit harder for the consumer to swallow. And for the other people on the road, we're worried about people taking their hands off the wheel because they're not going to pay attention at all. Well, I was taking a nap, I was shaving, I was putting on eyeliner, whatever that might be.
No, that's a great point. What we're talking about are level 3 cars that can have autonomous capability, but not for everything, where the driver's got to get back involved, versus a level 4 car, which may not even have a steering wheel or pedals or anything like that. Level 3 cars scare the hell out of me, where people can be used to having the car drive and they've got their laptop in their lap and their cell phone on the console and they're doing some work and all of a sudden the car says, hey, you got to take over. That scares the hell out of me.
Like, excuse me, you got to hang on. I'm in a conference call.
Yeah. So I want to know how that's different than what's going on right now out there. I mean, it's just you see guys reading books, driving their cars, and
the problem I have, the only thing I really worry about are baby boomers that are getting older, and if they're not driving every day, if they are, their senses and other things they're not going to have that same reaction if they are letting the car take over for themselves. So I'm a little worried about
their skills atrophying.
Yes, I mean they're going to decay over time if you're not doing that. I mean, my grandfather's 93 and driving.
I don't think he's a baby boomer. I'm just trying to protect my generation here. So
he's got one eye and he's still driving. Yeah. So. But
it's not the boomer's fault. We didn't put that eye out.
Well, when you turn 39 next year,
all right.
I think that's one of the concerns is that if these people are getting used to letting the car take over, you're not going to have that same reaction time. Your skill sets are going to decrease over time, and that's something that kind of worries me. Also, of course, weather. I mean, when the roads are snow covered, you can't see those. You're not going to be able to see those lane markings. So.
Yeah, but
they'll have laser beams. Will just melt the snow.
Oh,
So don't worry about it.
Did you want to jump in there, Lauren?
Yeah, I was just saying next we'll have flu powder. It'd be great. The best way to travel, I won't be waiting in line at the airport anymore.
That's right.
Just teleport me, will you?
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly right.
And for all those watching, we got to point out that Lauren is not driving the car as she's talking to us now.
No, hands-free.
Skyping while you drive.
Well, look, we've been at this for about an hour now, so probably should wrap up the show, even though there's plenty to talk about. Boy, we could have gone on forever with Travis here. That Ct6 is just mind-blowing.
But it's all going to be things that you can't see under the skin that are really, you can only see here that are really impressive.
Well, that's why I'm so glad they brought the cutaway. And, once the car itself comes out and we all get a chance to drive it, we're going to have Travis back with the full car in here. But you're right, even though you can't see under the skin, I bet you're going to be able to feel it when you drive this thing.
I'm excited to try their rear wheel steering. I think cars that have had that in the past, they feel so nimble.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty excited to try that.
Right.
And I think that Andrew Smith and the guys in Cadillac Design have probably done a sensational job when we see the whole thing together. So even though
the crying face,
even though we can't see the stuff that would be under
the crying face. Yes.
When it's all covered up, I think it'll look sensational.
It does still look like it's crying,
but nah.
Hey, Lauren, thanks. Thanks so much for joining us from Houston, Texas today.
Thank you so much, guys.
Great having you on. Dave Sullivan, thanks for stopping by. Really appreciate it. And Gary, let's do this
next week with that guy.
With Richard Rawlings, fast and loud. Crazy ass Texan, but he's got this TV show where they do all these car builds and whatnot. But I'm telling you, the guy's backstory, his life story, is pretty interesting. This guy's a real entrepreneur. It's going to be a fun show.
And people can win those books.
And you can win the books. Make sure you do that. So, for Autoline After Hours, signing off.
Autoline After Hours is brought to you by Bridgestone Tires, your journey, our passion. And by the all-new 2015 Jeep Renegade.
Visit our website, Autoline.tv, where you can watch us live. Get your daily news fix with Autoline Daily and in-depth analysis and interviews with Autoline This Week. There's all that and much more at Autoline.tv.